How's it going, everyone? Digital Scriptorium here, and today I want to talk about how to install Pop! OS from start to finish and a general run through of the operating system at the end. So what is Pop! OS? Pop! OS is a Linux distribution developed by System76, tailored for productivity, developers, and power users. It's based on Ubuntu but comes with several unique features that make it stand out. It focuses on productivity with a number of interesting features found only on this OS distro. It has a use case for just about everyone. Plus it has a pretty slick desktop environment, which is a customized GNOME desktop experience. Before I continue on, I just want to mention that if you find this video to be useful, please like it and subscribe to my channel to keep up with my latest releases. I also appreciate any donations made to my Ko-Fi or Patreon. Every bit goes right back into my channel to further allow me to keep producing my educational content. Anyhow, with that all said, let's continue on. As a warning, I want to mention that in this video I will be removing the entire operating system on my machine I'm installing this on. If you follow this guide and feel you need to jump back to say something like Windows 10 or 11, it's certainly an option, and I have a video guide for that should you need help. Let me quickly go over the system requirements and what you will need before we dig in. You will need a machine with a 64-bit compatible CPU from AMD or Intel. My recommendation is at least a 2-core CPU, however 4 cores would be even better. 4 GB of RAM, but I would personally recommend 8 GB this day and age. The website mentions a 16 GB hard drive, but realistically I would say a 64 GB hard drive or larger. Ideally a solid-state drive of some sort. Last but not least, we will need an 8 GB USB thumb drive or larger, and if you do not have a USB thumb drive on hand and are looking for a recommendation, I will have a link in the description below which you can go ahead and click on and purchase and all that good stuff. Alright, let's dig in. Alright, to begin, let's go to System76's website, and then let's go to the download button. And then you're going to have 3 different options to download. You'll have the generic long-term support release version. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, then you can download this version, which has the NVIDIA drivers pre-installed. There is also a Raspberry Pi 4 variant, but just to note, as it mentions here, it is just a tech preview version. And then it mentions the recommendations of 4 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of storage space, 64-bit processor, and then for the Raspberry Pi 4, USB 3 storage. And then it just mentions the file sizes for the different downloads. For today's video, it's going to be a 2.48 gig download. And then it also just mentions that you do need to disable Secure Boot in your BIOS to install Pop! OS. So we'll download the top variant here and just be patient as it downloads. Then once it's done downloading, then let's head on over to Rufus's website. So Rufus is a very powerful and free little executable application that can create bootable USB thumb drives. If we scroll down to the download section, then we will have a few different options here. For today's video, we're going to choose this top one, which is for the 64-bit Windows variant. However, there is also a 32-bit version and the Windows on ARM variant you can choose as well. There is a portable version as well, however, I just recommend people just stick with the standard versions. So we'll download this, and I'm just going to click the X for this Chromium-based browser thing here. And then I'm just going to click on the little folder here so it brings us to our downloads. And I'm just going to minimize it and close out of the browser. So one thing I've noticed with a lot of ISOs when I go to create a bootable thumb drive these days is that Windows Defender will falsely flag files as false positives. And so we'll just temporarily turn off real-time protection. Once again, it says temporary. These files are in fact safe. It just sees them as being iffy because they are operating system based files. So to start, let's go down to Start, Settings, Privacy and Security. At the very top, Windows Security, Virus and Threat Protection, and then under Virus and Threat Protection Settings, click on Manage Settings, and then Real-Time Protection, go ahead and toggle this off, and you'll get the UAC prompt, click on Yes, and now it is turned off temporarily. So we'll close out of that and out of that. And let's go back to the downloads section. So let's kick off Rufus just by double clicking on it. Click on yes, and it's going to pop up here. Now you will need an 8 GB USB thumb drive or larger to continue on with this process. If you don't have one, then I will have a link in the description below for a recommended thumb drive which will work the magic. Continuing on, plug a USB thumb drive in if you haven't already, and then click on select. Select the Pop! OS ISO, click on open. It's going to mention that it's an ISO hybrid image, and that's fine. Click on OK. And then just to be safe, I like to close out of everything except for Rufus. And before we click on start, I just want to warn you that if there is anything on the thumb drive that you need to back up for data, do so before you click start, because it will nuke everything on it. So I don't have anything on this thumb drive, so I'm going to click on start and OK here. And again, it's warning us that it's going to destroy all the data. Click on OK and just be patient as it writes all the files to the thumb drive. Alright, if all goes well, we should be at the ready state. There shouldn't be any errors, hopefully. If for some reason it does error, I would recommend rebooting the machine. Make sure you disable the real-time protection again, and then try to load the ISO onto the thumb drive with Rufus one more time. Hopefully things would play nice then. So we click close for this. And then at this point, the most difficult thing to continue to move forward is going to be to determine what your make and model of machine needs to actually get it to boot off the thumb drive. Some are the F1 key, the F2 key, the F4, F6, F8, F9, F10, F12, the delete key. Some tablets require you to hold a button sequence down, like holding the power button and the volume up or volume down button. So my recommendation is to Google your exact make and model to figure that out. And one thing also just to mention is that at this point, if there's anything you need to back up on the machine that you're going to nuke to install the operating system on, this is your chance to do so. So continuing on, I'm going to restart this machine. And as soon as it is at the manufacturer's post logo screen, then I'm going to mash, at least for mine, the F12 key. The key thing that we actually need to do at this point is we need to get into the BIOS of the machine first to make sure that secure boot is not enabled, just as Pop! OS's website recommended. Otherwise, it will not play nice at all. Keep mashing F12 here. And then let's go down to the enter setup. Now, of course, at this point, if you have a BIOS key that you can press, also use that to get directly into the BIOS. Every make and model is going to be different for these screens, but I'll at least show how mine looks, which may be helpful for you. So I'll enter setup, and then generally speaking, it's going to be under the security section of your BIOS. And I'm going to go down to secure boot, and I hit enter. Key thing is that mine is actually already disabled. However, if yours is enabled, then just toggle it to disabled, and then make sure to save and exit out of the BIOS. I'm just going to hit F10 as it states in the bottom right, and I select yes. And then I'm going to go right back to mashing the F12 key to get it to go back to the boot menu. And then in this case, my USB thumb drive is actually showing up as a USB CD-ROM, which is perfectly fine. I believe it's because of how Rufus detected it as a hybrid ISO. So yours may show up as a USB CD-ROM as well, or it could show up as USB thumb drive or USB HDD, which stands for hard disk drive. So I'm just going to hit enter for my thumb drive here, and then just be patient as it loads up. If you don't do anything at this point, it will auto boot into the selection that you see on the screen. I'll just hit enter to move it along a little bit faster. And then just be patient as it starts to load everything off of the thumb drive for us to continue on. And it's going to do a little crunching here. And we'll wait for the next portion to continue on. If you get this pop-up that says install Pop! OS is not responding, just click on wait. So at this point, it is running a live variant of itself, which allows you to test the operating system and see if it's something that you like, and if you maybe don't like it, then you can just not install it. But for today, we are going to install it. One thing just to mention is that I do have my machine plugged into a hardwired network. However, if you do not have a hardwired network available to you, if you go to the top right corner up here, click on this little network icon, and then you can always take a look at the Wi-Fi section. You can select networks and all that good stuff right here if need be. However, my recommendation is to hardwire it if possible. So continuing on with the installation process, hopefully the installer popped up for you. If it did not, there should be an icon in the bottom right hand corner that says install Pop OS. So at this point, go ahead and select the language that you want. In my case, English is fine for me. I'll click on select and then select your country option here. I'm going to leave mine as United States. That's fine. And then keyboard layout, feel free to change it to whatever you want. You can also test how it comes out depending on what you select for a keyboard. So I'll click on select for this. I'll leave mine as default. However, feel free to change it up here. Once again, you can also type to test it down here. Click on select. For today's video, I'm going to do a clean install. So this is going to erase the entire operating system and all the data on the machine that we are doing this all on. So if you need to back anything up on your machine, do so before you would continue on with this step. You can always use the power icon up on the top here. You can go to power off, log out. You can restart. It'll bring you right back to your previous operating system, back up what you need, and then just rinse and repeat the steps that we previously did here to get it to boot off the thumb drive and all that good stuff. So I'm going to click on clean install. Click on clean install in the bottom right. Hopefully it should show your hard drive here. Mine is a Samsung 500 gig drive. Once again, it's going to nuke the data on the drive. So before you click erase and install, make sure whatever you need is backed up. Click erase and install. And then I'll just type in a name for the full name section. And then for the username, I'll just make it something shorter than that. So digital will be fine for me. And then we'll click on next. Of course, feel free to change it up to whatever you want it to be. Click next, type in your password and then confirm it. Ideally, make it so it's a nice strong password. Mine's not really that strong. You can also check the password strength with this little bar here, and it may also warn you that it's bad password or something of that sort. So we'll click on next. At this point, you do have the option to encrypt the drive or not encrypt the drive. For the sake of this video, I'm going to select don't encrypt in the bottom left here. So now we are just waiting for the magic to happen. If you want to see what's going on behind the scenes, we can click on this little terminal icon and then it should start showing us stuff. But at this point, just sit back and wait for the magic to happen. And just waiting for it to finish the installation at this point. Alright, so if all goes well, we should see this continue setting up section. And then we should see a restart device or shut down. Let's click on restart device. And then once you see the manufacturer's logo screen again, just pull the thumb drive from the machine, just in case it decides to try to boot off of it again and put us into a nice boot loop of not actually getting to the installed variant. And the first time it boots sometimes can be the longest as it's configuring a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. Alright, so if all goes well, we should see our login screen here. So I'll click on my account, typed in my password and hit enter. And just be patient as it loads up. This is going to bring us through a general setup wizard here. So you can feel free to choose no dock, which would mean that you don't have any applications in the bottom. The dock extends to the edge, which means that it's actually extending all the way across here. And then there's the dock doesn't extend to edges. So choose whichever you want here. And let's click on next. The show workspace button and show application buttons are mentioning these two buttons up here. So if you don't want either of them, then you can toggle them on and off. The date and time notification position is currently set to center. You can feel free to set it to the left. You can set it to the right, whichever you prefer. I'll leave it just in the center as default, and we'll click on next. And then this is just talking about opening and switching applications from the launcher using the super key, which by default is the Windows key on your keyboard. We'll click on next. And then if you have a laptop with a touchpad, then you can use gestures to open applications and what have you. Click on next. Here's the option for a light mode or a dark mode. By default, at least it's running in dark mode. So if you want light mode, you can toggle it on and then back to dark mode. I'm going to leave dark mode on. Click on next. And then if you do have a wireless card in your machine, then it's going to give you the Wi-Fi options. So you can go in and select one of the SSIDs that are in range. In my case, I'm going to leave mine as is. And so we'll click on skip. There's the location services portion, which is toggled off. I'm going to toggle mine on just so that anything I actually use will actually know where I am. Of course, this is personal preference. I'll click on next, and then I'm going to choose my time zone over here, and we'll click on next. You can connect to your online accounts if you want to, Google and Microsoft and so on here. You can also scroll down to see enterprise login, Kerberos options. I'm just going to leave that as is, but feel free to check that out if you want. Click on skip. At this point, we are all done, so we'll click on start using Pop! OS. And before we begin with anything else, it does mention that we have system updates that are available, so I'm going to click on this and then just be patient as it loads everything up here. And let's do update all, and this is just going to make sure that everything is going to be nice and stable for us before we continue on, and just be patient as it downloads and installs everything. So this would be security patches, bug fixes, all that good stuff, feature enhancements, and once everything is done, it should state that it is up to date. However, just to be safe, let's close out of this, and then let's go up to the power icon in the top right hand corner, click on power off and log out, select restart. Let's just make sure we have a clean slate before continuing on, and click on restart. And just be patient as it comes right back up for us. And we'll log back in. And I am just going to adjust the resolution real quick. For you, it probably is setting it to the proper resolution. However, for my PiKVM device, which is my eyes on this machine, it can't detect the resolution properly. So I'm just going to right click on the background. I'm just going to go to display settings. And I'm just going to change this to 1920 by 1080. And apply it. And I'll go over all this stuff in a little bit, but at least this will make this look a little crisper and easier to view. So now I just want to give a general overview of the operating system and what's on it. So to begin, let's take a look at the top right hand corner. And if we click on it, so just as we did after the system updates, there is the power off and log out section. So you can suspend, restart, power off and log out. You can lock the machine. You can go to the settings, which I won't click on right now, but we'll get into it a little bit later. There's also the Wi-Fi options. We click on that, you can select the network, turn it off, Wi-Fi settings, and then the wired connection. You can also turn it off and adjust the wired settings here. It also has the volume adjuster up here in case you need to utilize that. To the left of it is another option for tile windows, floating window exceptions, shortcut things, a whole bunch of fine-tunements you can do here. The middle of the screen is, of course, our date and time stuff. If we click on this, it will open a calendar, and there is also a notifications portion here, which sometimes may show system updates and things like that. There's also a do not disturb option, and then there's also a clear option if you want to clear out your notifications. And then you can also select a weather location and take a look at events for the day on your calendar. Over on the left hand side, if you enabled your workspaces and applications, so if you click in applications, it's going to bring up your applications screen. You can search for applications. So it starts off with your library home. There's office, application sections, system sections, utilities, and you can also create a folder. You can also edit the name of the folder if you wanted to with the pencil, and you can also delete the folder, which I don't recommend you do. Just click cancel for that, and then going back to the desktop. So the workspaces portion, again, if that is enabled, allows you to choose between different workspaces. So if you have different applications open between them, or you may have files on your desktop on these different workspaces, you can have all sorts of different workspaces here to toggle between things. In the bottom left-hand corner, we can click on this, and this is going to show the launcher. To the right of it is show workspaces. So just as the workspaces we showed off previously, the next one over to the right, show applications. And the next one over is going to be Firefox, which is the default browser in Pop! OS, which we can quickly jump through these initial setup options here. So we can toggle set Firefox as your default browser, import from previous browser. Since there is no previous browser information that I'm using, I'm just going to click save and continue. Stay encrypted when hopping between devices. You can feel free to dig into this if you like. I'm just going to click on skip this step. You can customize Firefox, these things, and you can also explore more add-ons. I'll just click skip this step and then start browsing. So that is, of course, your browser. So we can click out of that. To the right of Firefox is your files section. So you can take a look at your recent, your starred, home, desktop, documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos, your trash, and then other locations. And it may show network devices on your network here. And it's also showing your computer. And you can also connect to a server down below here. So we'll close out of that. So to the right of files is the terminal. So if you need to use any terminal commands, you can do so within this. And then to the right of the terminal is the Pop shop. And currently it's checking for updates. We'll wait for that to finish. I'm just going to double click up in the bar here so it maximizes. But this is basically the app store of sorts. So you can install these different applications like Steam, Visual Studio Code. You can scroll down. It's going to give you categories that you can choose from. So lots of good stuff in there. I'll close out of this. And then the next one over on the right is your settings. And let me maximize this. So at least currently it's stuck on the display option because that's where I went to adjust my display options to get it to 1080. However, let's start at the very top here. So Wi-Fi, if you have a Wi-Fi card, is going to show up here with your SSIDs. Mine are going to be slightly blurred out. And the next one down is going to be network. So you can adjust a number of network things here, and you can take a look at your hardwired connection if you have one. You can take a look at Bluetooth configurations if you have a Bluetooth controller. In my case, I do not. There's your desktop options. And then it also opens a subcategory section here where you can select your background. Maybe you like this background. And there's an appearance section, which just gives you the option between your light and your dark modes. The dock configurations here. And by dock, once again, it's the dock on the bottom here. And you can scroll down and there's a number of settings. The workspaces configurations you can alter here. And then if we hit the back arrow on the top left, then we can take a look at notifications. So you can take a look at all the applications that have notifications turned on. There's the do not disturb portions here and lock screen notifications. The applications, this opens up a whole another section of various sub configurations. So you got archive manager, calculator, calendar, character map, contacts, and so on down here. And you can scroll down to see all of the different configurations and stuff here. Most of these are notification options. So we'll click back. Then the privacy section. So once again, lots of subcategories here to choose from. Location services, Thunderbolt, if you have a Thunderbolt controller, file history and trash, screen options, online accounts. Once again, if you did not add an online account during the initial setup, you can do so here. Sharing. So the sharing option gives a hostname section. So if you want to change the name of your computer, you can do so here. If you want to enable remote desktop, you can do that, and media sharing, you can do that there. Under sound is your general sound configurations. Under power, if you got a laptop, these settings are usually pretty good. However, if you have a desktop, one thing that a lot of people like to do is turn off automatic suspend when idle, so that the machine actually stays on. Of course, it's personal preference, but in my case, I'm going to turn it off. The displays, this just brings us back to the option screen that we saw at the very beginning where I just adjusted the screen resolution. but you can feel free to change whatever you want here. And there is also a night light option up here. You can feel free to change that to whatever you want. And then next up is the mouse and touchpad portion. Feel free to alter those how you want it. Keyboard, this is just going to give you more keyboard configuration options if you want to alter anything after the setup process. Printers, you can add a printer in this section. Removable media, you can configure it to how you want it to react when plugged in or inserted if it's a CD or DVD. Color, if there's anything you need to alter for the color management profiles, you can do so here. Firmware, if you have any managed firmware that is detected. Region and language, if you need to alter any of these. Accessibility, there's a slew of configurations you can change up in this portion. Users, you can alter your user account in here. You can unlock it to add more users if you want. Default applications, this is where you can go in and set your default applications for each type of option here. Date and time, change these up if you like. OS upgrade and recovery, if we wait for this to load, then it will give us these options. For one, it's going to state if there is a newer version of Pop! OS out there. You can choose potentially to do an upgrade up here. You can set automatic updates if you want, and then choose when the automatic updates happen. This is all complete personal preference. Updates are, of course, a very critical thing this day and age for stability and security purposes. There's the support option. So you can take a look at documentation, the community, create log files. You can see the version of your operating system, and then about is once again just mentioning your host name or device name in this case. If you click on this, you can alter it here as well. And then it just mentions the hardware of your machine and the operating system information down here. All right, one last thing just to show off, and I showed it technically earlier when I was adjusting the screen resolution when the desktop first came up. But if you right click on the desktop background, then you will get the sub menu here. And just like most modern operating systems, you can create a new folder. If you'd copied something, you could paste it. If you can do a select all, you can arrange icons. You can click arrange by, which breaks out a new sub panel with a bunch of different options you can choose here, depending on how you want to customize things. There's the show desktop and files option, open in terminal, change the background, desktop icon settings, and display settings. So at least for the settings portions and the change background, those are just in the settings menu to begin with. All right, that's all you need to do to get Pop! OS installed on a machine. I hope you found this video to be useful. If you did, I would appreciate it if you like it and subscribe to my channel to keep up with my latest video happenings. I also invite you to check out my channel's other guides if you haven't done so already. Lots of interesting guides and many more to come. Anyhow, until next time, take it easy.